Please purchase a personal license to remove this message. The desert at night was never quiet, it was always listening. You could feel it leaning in, grain by grain, holding its breath to see if you'd live long enough to tell your story. It collected things: cattle bones bleached to ivory, wagon wheels swallowed whole by sand, wedding rings slipped from skeletal fingers, and hopes, especially hopes. Lately, it had begun collecting children. One missing child, sad shake of the head and a murmured prayer. 2 was coincidence muttered across a general store counter. By the 10th, folks in Los Mola stopped pretending it was anything but the devil's handwork. Clawed fingers snatching brats from dusty alleys while the sheriff played chess and the priest muttered empty Latin into his whiskey mug. The town's soul curdled under a sun that seemed to watch it all with a bored, yellow eye. Folks watched the sheriff twiddle his thumbs, while kids vanished into the night. Some hotheads formed a militia, rusty shotguns and pitchforks, patrolling the back alleys and streets under a blood moon. They found nothing but their own shadows, jumping at coyote yips. Didn't he slow the snatching one damn bit? The disappearances had a rhythm now, a terrible punctuation to the weeks: a sandal left behind, a ribbon caught on a thorn, a silence where laughter used to be. By the 30th child, the smart ones packed up, fleeing Los Mola's curse with whatever scraps they owned, their wagons creaking south, away from the whispering arroyos. But not everyone had that luxury. The haggards didn't shackled to this dust-choked hell by debts older than the town and kin buried in its yard. They chose another path, darker, hungrier, the kind that trades your soul for a loaded .45 and a whisper of vengeance. Or in their case, for a steady supply of silver and the removal of problems. The Haggard homestead was a day's hard march outside Los Mola, a clutch of structures so arthritic with age they seemed to sag from shame. The main house listed like a drunkard, its timbers groaning with every gust. The barn was a skeleton picked clean of ambition. Every warped board and rusted hinge appeared to apologize for its own existence. Jack and Jill Haggard had lived there so long the very land had taken on the look of their faces, dry, pinched, and full of poorly buried secrets. The mesquite grew twisted as their spines, the ground was hard and unforgiving as their hearts. Word of the 30th stolen kid hit the Haggards like a gut shot in the dead of night. Cold fear coiled in their bones, squeezing tighter around thoughts of their only boy, wide-eyed, kicking dust in the yard, ripe for the snatch. They were too damn scared for badges or bounties. The law was bought, and bounty hunters asked too many questions. No, they sent for him. Not a marshal with his tin star and empty promises. Not a bounty hunter chasing pesos. Something meaner. Something that whispered through tequila fumes and left blood on the sand. They sent for John Wayne. He rode into their lives like a bad omen on a tired bay mare. John was tall the way a gallows pole is tall, lank, weathered, and wrapped in a silence that made even rattlesnakes still their tongues. His duster was the color of old dust, his hat pulled low, casting his face in perpetual shadow. His eyes were flint slits in the canyon of his face, holding no curiosity and no forgiveness. His soul patch and upward curling mustache were as precise as a gambler's deck, the only vanity on a man otherwise carved from stone. When he dismounted, the very dust seemed to recoil from his boots, as if they carried the memory of other, bloodier grounds. The Haggards met him on their porch as if they had nothing more pressing to do on a Wednesday afternoon than await for a gunslinger. Jack chewed a straw to nothing. Jill's knuckles were white on her shawl. Their fear, they claimed, was for their boy, the apple of their heart, their sole reason for enduring this cruel world. They could not bear the thought of him being taken. John, a straightforward man, inquired after payment and the nature of the threat. His voice was the sound of a grave being dug in dry earth. The Haggards spilled it all in the flickering lamplight of their parlor, a room that smelled of dust, boiled cabbage, and lies, the devil himself snatching kids county-wide, dragging them screaming into dust devils and midnight arroyos. They painted him with horns and hellfire, a beast from the pit. They shoved a pouch across the scarred table, tarnished silver, old coins etched with forgotten saints, heavy with the grease of anxious palms. "Keep our boy safe," the father rasped, eyes hollow as spent shells. The mother clutched a rosary like it could fend off hellhounds, her prayers a frantic, silent buzz on her thin lips. He weighed the pouch in his calloused palm, flint eyes unblinking. Silver bought a lot but safety? That was just another lie the wind carried off. They called for the boy. Kent. Kent emerged from the dimness of the hallway, a child of 3, with eyes like dark pools that had seen too much stillness and skin the color of rich earth. Jack and Jill were pale as bone, their features sharp as axe blades, descendants of hardscrabble stock from some forgotten corner of Europe. The boy was not. It was a picture that did not fit, a discordant note in the dirge of their lives. But in John's profession, pointing out the obvious was a fine way to get paid in lead instead of silver. He held his peace. One of his eyebrows lifted a fraction, a seismic event on his still face. Jill pulled the boy tightly against her skirts, fabric swallowing his small form. He's ours. Of he's ours. The statement hung, a challenge wrapped in desperation. John did not correct her. He filed the discrepancy away, another piece of the puzzle gathering in the cold vault of his mind. They spun a thick tale of the devil's approach, of strange, cloven footprints circling the house at dawn, of peculiar heathen marks scored into the sill of Kent's window, symbols that smoldered and stank of rancid fat. John had heard poorer lies from better liars, but the genuine, acrid terror in their eyes, and the fresh, splintered gouges in the window frame, suggested they were brushing against some truth, or a distant, twisted cousin of it. They led him down the creaking hall, past peeling wallpaper that hung in strips like dead skin, past locked doors that hid only emptiness and dust, to the boy's room at the house's bitter end. 5 rooms away from their own master bedroom. A long, dark gauntlet for a small child to run. The boy's room was a jarring shrine to manufactured innocence. Cheap wooden toys lay scattered, horses with chipped legs, soldiers with faded paint, a bear whose single remaining painted eye held an insolent calm, as if it knew secrets and found them petty. The window was not barred. It hung ajar on a broken hinge, a black mouth open to the swallowing night, an invitation written in negligence. John stood in the doorway, his gaze traveling from the window to the brand-new, garishly cheerful red stripes on the wall, then settling on Jack. The paint was fresh enough to smell, a failed attempt to cloak the room's dread and cheer. Jack flushed, the mottled red of guilt and shame. We tried fixin' it. Hinges rusted through. Can't hold. John said nothing. The silence deepened, thick and uncomfortable, pressing on the old man's excuses. We're old, Jack added, weakly, holding up hands that did, in fact, tremble with a slight, constant palsy. My hands shake. Couldn't he drive a nail straight if salvation depended on it? You figured, John repeated, his voice flat, absorbing the words, tasting their cowardice. Jill's voice cut like a wire. We kept him close. We watched him. But we can't stay awake forever. We need our sleep, so he sleeps here. It's as safe as if he was right beside us, shotgun under the pillow. John's flint eyes didn't flicker. A child safe? In Los Mola, that word was just tumbleweed lies, bouncing from one dry soul to another until it crumbled to nothing. John let his gaze linger on the open window, then on their pale, twitching faces. A breeze slipped through the gap, carrying the scent of dust and something sweetly rotten underneath, like overripe fruit left in a crypt. He nodded slowly, as if accepting their pathetic reality. Inside, he marked it all down in the ledger of his mind. The boy, alone. The unlocked window. The feeble excuse. The too quick, theatrical fear. It wasn't carelessness. It was an invitation. A set. All right, he said, the word a stone dropped into a well. I'll watch him. You get some sleep. Later, when the Haggards were occupied elsewhere, whispering like rats in the kitchen, John went to the barn. He returned with 3 stout oak planks, relics of a better-built past. He nailed the boy's window shut with methodical, brutal efficiency. Each hammer blow echoed through the still house like a coffin being sealed, a judgment pronounced. The bang, bang, bang was a language the Haggards understood. They did not come to investigate. At nightfall, he doused the lamp, settled into a rocking chair in the corner, and waited in the candy-striped dark. The only light came from the bleached bone of the moon, painting stripes of pallid silver across the floor. He did not smoke. He did not fidget. He became a part of the shadow, his breathing slowing until it was quieter than the settling of the house. The colt on his lap was a cold, familiar weight. He did not wait long. Just past midnight, a presence pressed against the house. Not a sound, but a deepening of silence, a vacuum that sucked the ambient noise from the world. The crickets ceased, the wind died, the very wood of the house seemed to hold its breath. The darkness gained weight and substance. The window groaned. Not under force, but in decay. The wood of his planks withered, cracking with dry rot. The iron nails rusted into crumbling orange dust in the space of a single breath. A shape manlike, but profoundly wrong, oozed through the gap. It was less a step and more a pouring, a sinuous flow of darkness that resolved into a form elegant, clad in rumpled red silk pajamas of expensive cut, now smeared with adobe dust. From its temples curled two slender, blood-red horns like polished coral. John did not call out. He did not demand a name. He fired once. The muzzle flash froze the room in a stark, ghastly tableau. The striped walls, the terrified toys, the elegant demon mid-entry. The .45 caliber round took the intruder high in the shoulder, spinning it with a grunt of surprise. It collapsed, half in and half out of the window frame. One leg, clad in fine silk, hung inside. The fabric around the shoulder was already blackening with blood that smelled of ozone and burnt sugar. The smell arrived next, sulfur undercut by expensive cologne, sandalwood and bergamot fighting a losing battle against the pit. Boots thudded down the hall. The door flew open. Jack and Jill stood breathless, holding only a lantern. No shotgun. No knife. No weapon at all, just a single lantern whose flame danced wildly in their trembling hands. Odd. Very odd. Parents, fearing the devil, come armed only with light. The lantern light fell upon their devil. He was a man in form, wearing ruined silk. His face was handsome in a sharp, ageless way, all high cheekbones and pointed chin, now twisted in pain and profound annoyance. His eyes, when they opened, were the color of molten gold, with slitted pupils like a cat's. The devil rolled those golden eyes. It's him! Jill shrieked, the sound tearing the night. The devil himself! Kill it, Mr. Wayne! Send it back to hell! The devil let out a pained, wet chuckle. Oh, do stifle yourself, you harpy! Your breath smells of tallow and spite. He turned his gaze to John, assessing him with a strange, almost academic curiosity. My apologies for the theatrics. Window frames were not designed for a baron of hell. It's undignified. Kill him, John! Jack bleated, his voice cracking. The devil sighed, a wet, rattling sound. Jack! Jill! I am so disappointed. After all our mutually beneficial arrangements, you resort to a mercenary? How gauche! And a messy one at that. He gestured weakly with his good arm at his bleeding shoulder. He's lying. Jack barked, spittle flying. The father of lies. The devil coughed, a delicate trickle of black blood tracing his lip. If I were lying, darling, it would be far more convincing. And flavorful. These two, he said to John, are entrepreneurs of the most unscrupulous sort. They offered me children. For silver coins. John's hand drifted toward the silver in his pocket, the coins now feeling leprous against his fingers. I prefer adults, the devil continued, as if discussing vintage wine. Adults have flavor. History. Layers of guilt and regret and triumph. Children? He made a dismissive, pained gesture. Boring. Like eating plain old boiled potatoes. No offense to the boy. The boy saw and heard everything, peeking from his blanket, and he pulled the wool over his face in a desperate attempt to hide from the monstrous truths unfolding in his bedroom. Jack had gone the color of old chalk. He twists the truth. He's the snatcher. The devil's thin smile was a razor cut. Oh, I am a snatcher, old Mother Jill. Then would you like to tell our taciturn friend what moulders beneath the pear tree in your backyard? Or shall I? I do so hate to repeat myself. Jill went rigid, her face a mask of pure, incandescent horror. Oh, where were we? The devil murmured to John, his voice like velvet over broken glass. Before that blunt interruption. Ah yes, the children. They were most insistent on children. A forked tongue, sleek and black, flicked the air, tasting their fear. Something about culling undesirable herds. Cleaning up the town for a better class of resident. But tonight? Tonight was to be a feast. You were the feast, gunslinger. They dangled the boy as bait to lure you here, into my jaws. A man of your particular moral fiber, they thought, would be a rare vintage. He paused, horns scraping the ceiling as he tried to sit up straighter. But sadly, it seems I've become your prey tonight. High-pitched, bubbling laughter erupted from the demon, a sound like shards of shattered glass raining in the dark. Panic blazed in Jill's eyes like a cornered wolf's. The facade shattered. Her hand plunged under the folds of her dress, yanking free a pearl-handled derringer, tiny, lethal, a jeweled spider of spite gleaming in the lamplight. It was not pointed at the devil but at John. She never got the shot off. John's colt barked first, a thunderclap in the close shack. The derringer spun across the floorboards, trailing the index finger still curled around its trigger. Jill gaped at the ruin of her hand, at the blood sheeting her wrist, shock corking her scream into a wet, choking gurgle. It was all the distraction the devil required. With a sound like tearing silk and a sigh of released pressure, his body dissolved. It unraveled into a coil of black and crimson mist, shot through with glints of infernal gold. It slipped free of the trapped foot, leaving it behind, a limp, grotesque thing in the window frame, already crumbling into ash and faint, smoking threads of silk. The mist poured into the Texas night, trailing a fading, mocking chuckle that seemed to say this isn't over. Silence rushed back in, heavier than before, broken only by Jill's low, animal mewling, the drip of her blood on the floorboards, and the boy's soft, terrified whimper from the corner. John turned. The cold fury in his eyes was more terrible than any devil's fire. He leveled his pistol at Jack, who crumpled to his knees as if the bones had been removed from his legs. Mercy! Jack wept, strings of saliva swinging from his chin. We're old. We have no one. The bodies, John's voice was grinding stone. Show me. A few persuasive blows with the Colt's barrel, later cracks against bone that spoke a language Jack understood perfectly. They led him out into the yard, to the twisted pear tree that had never borne fruit. Its branches were skeletal hands clawing at the stars. John made them dig with their bare hands. The earth resisted at first, dry and compacted, then gave way too easily, as if eager to confess. The smell rose slow and thick, sweet and profoundly wrong, the perfume of the damned. Bone emerged like pale, fragile accusations from the soil. Small. A tiny rib cage. A delicate skull. Then another. And another. Indisputable at first, a chorus of silent screams. But then, deeper, bigger skulls emerged, and with them, not just bones, but piles of silver coins, rings, pocket watches, a corrupt treasury. The haggards hadn't just sold souls to a devil. They'd been middlemen, grave robbers, and the devil's bankers, burying the receipts alongside the collateral. Jill babbled through her sobs and the agony of her mangled hand, cradled against her stomach. They weren't proper. Not like you and us. Just nigger and wetback babies, orphans, strays, nobody of account. It's not the same as if they were good children, white children. It's not the same. John looked at the small bones, gleaming in the moonlight. Then at the monstrous old woman, her bigotry laid bare with her guts. Then at the weeping old man, hollowed out by greed. It's exactly the same, he said, and his voice was the finality of a tombstone settling into earth. 2 shots cracked, dry and final as stones striking bedrock. The desert swallowed the sounds without echo, adding 2 more secrets to its endless collection. At first light, John Wayne rode into Los Mola, the sleeping boy tied securely before him on the saddle. The town was just stirring, blinking in the harsh dawn. He left the wide-eyed little boy with the weary priest at the mission church, along with a pouch of blood-tarnished silver that felt hot with sin. For his keep. And for them, John said, nodding toward the quiet mission yard where a small, unmarked plot held tiny graves the priest had dug himself. The priest, a man whose faith had been worn thin by the desert wind, took the boy and the silver. He crossed himself, not in benediction, but in a kind of horrified resignation. Without another word, John turned his horse south, away from the rising sun. The wind shifted, carrying a faint, lingering trace of sulfur and expensive cologne, a scent trail on the edge of perception. The devil owed him a debt. For the bullet. For the disrupted feast. For the insult of being used as a tool in the Haggard's sordid scheme. And John Wayne always collected.